couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Felt like I was the one who put myself in the tunnel. What kind of God was I serving? Who was I serving? And what did I expect from the situation? It was like a thread kind of like unveiled itself. And so the more I was pulling, the more things were coming out. What have I been believing? What have I been listening to? My eyes opened up. I was like, oh my God, who have I been like telling my life to? Who have I been sharing my life with? Very cultish mentality that was gonna keep me in a situation that wasn't healthy for me. And that, my friends, is what deconstruction looks like. And now look at me. Like, I am fearless. Welcome to my YouTube channel where beauty meets purpose and transformation begins. Today's episode, as you can see as on the title, it says reinventing yourself in your 30s. And that's what we're gonna do today. I didn't even know it was called reinventing, but let me tell you how I kind of figured out what I was doing after I already did it. I'm gonna get ready to head out, so we're gonna have to do both together, okay? I didn't even know it was called reinventing, honestly. It was a lot of things that happened that kind of like landed me in that spot. This is gonna be definitely a 2-part, maybe a 3-part series, because I don't think I can fit everything in one video. I want to give you a little bit of a backstory so you can see a full picture of what I'm talking about. I got married when I was 27, got divorced not even a year after. And I had a very traumatic divorce experience. But I honestly didn't know divorce was a thing. And I don't mean that divorce never happened. I knew divorce happened, but it just didn't happen to people like me. And I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. I'm serious. Like, I didn't know it would happen to people like me. And you might ask, what are you talking about? What kind of people are you where you think you're special? Well, the thing is, the way I grew up is it would told me that that's something that happened to a secluded number of people. I grew up in a very tight-knit Christian household where, I spent most of my years, most of my week at church. It was kind of embedded in the system that I grew up in. So if you do good things, then good things will happen for you. If you serve God, then God will do this for you. So it's a very like transactional relationship. These things wouldn't happen to me because I've done these things, right? I've been a good Christian. I've been serving the Lord, and so when it happened, it was like a sense of failure, right? Like you failed. The thing is, like, they wouldn't actually say, oh, you're a failure or whatever. It's a sign of perseverance, right? You don't have the fruits of the Spirit, because if you did have the fruit of the Spirit, you would persevere. We love the suffering servant mentality. So if you are not suffering and you haven't gone through it, if you haven't waited enough for God to change the situation, even though He might have already given you like, you need to get out of there, you are kind of considered like a failure. You quit too soon. You didn't wait enough. You didn't, these things are like embedded in the teachings. While I was, deciding to go through the divorce, I remember this person who shall not be named was giving me a story, and he said there was this girl, she, her husband abandoned her, did so many things to her, and she spent 10 years waiting for him, and then now they're living a very happy, glorious life, and that's something to aspire to. You should wait or whatever. That was like the thing. Literally, like, this is a person who leads a church who told me this story, and at that mindset, like where I was, I'm gonna be honest with you, I really did consider making those decisions, even though the situation I was in was not good for me. But the thing is, I really it didn't sit well with me that, thank Jesus, thank God for, the brain I have where it like kind of detached. It detached from those like fear-mongering thoughts that were gonna keep me in a situation that was not healthy for me. Even though I risked being like, oh, found like ridiculed or maybe laughed at, because my marriage ended less than a year, pretty much less than a year. And so like I honestly didn't think that that was something I at that point. It was just like I was over the situation. And so, and this is not like to bash anybody, whatever. My past is my past, but these are like really pivotal moment in my life where it really shaped who I am as a person now. Like it really made me pause and say, what have I been believing? What have I been listening to? What have I been consuming? What have I, made it to be godly that's not godly just because it sounded godly? And they used scripture and very cultish mentality that was gonna keep me in a situation that wasn't healthy for me. Honestly, like I feel for all the sisters in these types of situations, or brothers that are going in circles because they are fearing of making those like really hard decisions for their lives. It was like a thread kind of like unveiled itself. And so the more I was pulling, the more things were coming out, more things about myself, how I see myself in respect to my relationship with God. All those things like kind of came to light. And you know I wish nobody goes through what I went through, to kind of self actualize, to kind of get to this point of like reinventing yourself. But like I hope this story kind of like makes you feel sane. You're not alone. And like I don't want anybody to go through this to be able to say, oh, this is a great thing, this, I'm glad this happened. But I am glad this happened for me. And it's kind of insane to think about, a few years, not even like a lot of years after the incident, to come back to a full circle and say, this is probably the greatest thing, the greatest favor God has given me, because I would have lived my life in a complete herd mentality. That's exactly what I want to say. It's a herd mentality. It's not, it was, the reality of my life was not being, coming close to what the reality that my community, not just the church, but like the social community, the social structure was telling me. So I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was going insane. You know what I mean? I was like, what is my life now? What am I gonna do? How do I even like get this stain? Like it's almost a stain that just doesn't go away. You're wearing white and there's just like black shadow right here, and it's like it won't come off. I take full responsibility for everything I did. I think we should be careful what we say to people, and you don't know what ear it lands on, and we need to be sensitive. We need to understand where people are coming from. I don't think God fits in a box. There's like an indoctrination, and I just don't like that. The church have time and time and time and time again have told me that I wouldn't fit in that environment. And so that kind of led into like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like I'm supposed to get married, and marriage is very important. It's part of, being a good Christian. So the people I'm surrounded with, the churches I was going, they were very like, oh, the guys were like, they would literally come to me and say, you're too intimidating. Yeah, like I kid you not. I've been told multiple times, and that kind of was like, oh, do I need to change? Do I need to talk softer? Do I need to? And I want to hug my younger self. Like I just want to hug her and tell her, you know what? F everything. Be yourself, honey. Just be yourself. Love yourself. God loves you. Who cares? I want to say that, but at the time I was, if you are in a bubble, if you are in that like consistent routine, you're hanging out with the same people, you're going to one, like your schedule is like kind of set, it basically that kind of shapes you, right? And basically I met somebody who at the time was kind of like a saving grace from that situation, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh my gosh, like I found somebody, It's a miracle that I found somebody, so it must mean that I married them. And I know I'm kind of simplifying the whole situation, but kind of where I feel like my mind was at the time. Now that I'm out of the situation, you kind of like see things clearly. So yeah, I think like my mind was like, okay, I found somebody who doesn't absolutely like, who I absolutely adored at the time. So I ignored a lot of things, and that's pretty much the honest truth. I was doing what a good Christian girl does, persevere. I was being patient and all that stuff. But I do regret letting somebody indoctrinate me in that way, where I was able to ignore the situations, you know what I mean? And now look at me. Like, I am fearless. Like, I do things I enjoy. I do things I love. I hang out with people I like. To see things clearly, you can't unsee them. And that's the thing. You can't unsee some of the things you've seen. And it's not, there's no like amount of, oh my God, I feel secluded from my community. Let me just pray and fast and see if, these feelings go away. It doesn't work that way. You've seen things that you can't unsee anymore. Just embrace it, honestly. Like, I embrace it. Okay, the truth is I didn't embrace it right away. I still felt like an outsider. I was like, oh my God, this is like weird and it's going fast. And the whole transformation just kind of like was like quick. It made me realize that I had people in my life, close people in my life, that didn't have the best intentions for me. I like, my eyes opened up. I was like, oh my God, who have I been like telling my life to? Who have I been sharing my life with? And so these things like kind of like help you. They feel like a crisis at the time. You're like, oh my God, I'm losing everybody. I'm losing the people around me. I'm losing my church community. All these things, they're very hard. So I'm not simplifying the situation, but it's necessary. It's a very necessary step. I told you this was gonna be a two-parter. But bear with me while I use a mirror because I can't really see clearly what I'm doing without it. Yeah, so after a few months after the divorce, I would say about 6 months or so, I was fine. I was like, when is this depression gonna come? I see a lot of women depressed, and where's this? I was like, God, I got the easy way out? I got the easy way out? No way, right? Like, I'm saying these things. I was like, there's no way this is like this simple. And for a time, I really thought it was that simple. But honestly, after a few months, summer of 2022, that probably is like my lowest point. I started feeling them for the first time. I started feeling my feelings because I was suppressing them. I was, using other outlets to express my frustration with life. And God, the process was very hard for me, not just to accept what I was going through. I went through a lot of like, I hated everybody, including myself and God. I hated my parents. I hated my church. I hated so many things. Like, I hated the way I grew up. I hated the fact that like I allowed these situations to kind of dictate my life. And it was more so like I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Felt like I was the one who put myself in the tunnel, and so it was just, I think the hardest part, like everybody says, is like forgiving yourself, and maybe like even like still like holding resentment and disappointment towards God, because you really kind of like have to stop and say, what kind of God was I serving? Who was I serving? And what did I expect from the situation? And that, my friends, is what deconstruction looks like. And, while I was going through it, it's funny because I think while I was going through it, a lot of Christians were also going through it. That's why I think we're so connected as a community. we go through like 2023. I remember 2023 was like a really hard year, but I was scrolling YouTube or Instagram, whatever. Everybody was saying like it was not a good year for everybody. I was like, we're so connected, but it was that everybody was saying it was a necessary year, and that's exactly how I felt. So when I was deconstructing, everybody else around me was also deconstructing, and there were also a lot of Christian contents that came out against deconstructing. Don't get me started. I will come back with a part 2, like I said, because why? Because we are running out of time for today, but I'll come back with a part 2 where I finish up the story, and then we can dive deep into actually what steps I recognized I did while I was reinventing myself, and maybe steps you will need to take to see if that is something you want to do. I so appreciate your time. Like, subscribe for more. See you soon. Bye.